World War II was a place where death felt almost routine. Across Europe, the sky itself became a battlefield, an endless arena of contrails, falling metal, and exploding clouds of black smoke. Every day, the roar of engines signaled another wave of American bombers rising into the cold morning air, heading deep into the heart of enemy territory. For the men who climbed aboard these aircraft, the ritual never changed. A final cigarette, a nervous joke, a photo taken with forced smiles, the kind families would later treasure, never knowing it would be the last. They understood the statistics. They understood that German anti-aircraft guns, fighter interceptors, and the unforgiving cold at 20,000 feet killed thousands of airmen every month. Every takeoff was a gamble with death. Most crews would never return. Entire squadrons vanished in a single mission, gone within seconds, swallowed by fire and gravity. Yet somewhere in this storm of destruction existed stories that break every law of probability. Stories of men who faced certain death. Men who fell from the sky, who drifted across endless oceans, who survived not because they were lucky, but because something deep within them refused to die. This is the story of those impossible survivors. Men who should have died but didn't. On the morning of the mission, the B-17 crew gathered like they always did. 10 young men in heavy flight jackets, oxygen masks slung around their necks, boots crunching through frost as they walked across the runway. They were more than crewmates. They were brothers. There was the pilot, calm, responsible, the kind of man who carried the weight of every life on board. The co-pilot, quiet but sharp, always double-checking every gauge. The bombardier, the artist, as the others called him, with steady hands and deadly accuracy. Gunners who joked about everything, even death, as if humor could keep fear away. And at the heart of the plane, the flight engineer, a man named John M., whose mechanical instincts kept everyone alive on more than one mission. They had survived Flak before. They had outrun fighters. They believed, deep down, that they were unbreakable. Before boarding, someone asked John what he'd do after the war. He said, "I'll go home, see my brother, and never get inside a plane again." No one knew that within an hour, 9 of these 10 men would be gone forever. As the bomber formation approached the target, the radio crackled with warnings. Flak ahead. Heavy concentration. The sky darkened, not from clouds, but from explosions. Hundreds of German 88mm guns opened fire, painting the air with black bursts that shook the sky itself. Air crews feared fighters, but they hated Flak. Flak didn't chase you, didn't think, didn't hesitate. It simply waited, a wall of steel, smoke, and fire, and if you flew into it, you died. Inside the B-17, the crew held their breath. Shrapnel began tearing through the aircraft. Metal screamed. Oxygen hoses snapped. The bombardier shouted he couldn't see through the smoke. John watched flames lick across the wing. Every second felt like an eternity. Outside, the sky looked like a storm of black flowers blooming, each one a deadly explosion. One gunner whispered through the intercom, "If this one hits us, I hope it's quick." He would never get that wish. At 11:17 a.m., the sky flashed white. An 88mm shell exploded directly beneath the left wing root. The aircraft jerked violently, throwing the men inside like dolls. Fire erupted instantly, racing across fuel lines. The pilot tried to stabilize, shouting commands that were drowned by the roar of destruction. "We're hit. We're..." The transmission cut off. John saw the right gunner's station engulfed in flames. Another explosion ripped through the fuselage. Heat, smoke, and noise blended into one overwhelming moment. Someone yelled, "Bail out! Bayou!" But the order came too late. The B-17 broke apart midair. 9 men died instantly, consumed by fire or torn apart by the blast. Only John, thrown violently from the plane by the force of the explosion, survived that moment. As he spun into open sky, unconscious, he had no idea he had just experienced the first miracle. John regained consciousness in silence. No flames. No aircraft. Only the wind screaming past his ears. He was falling, 20,000 feet straight down. Below him, The world looked distant and unreal, like a photograph slowly coming into focus. He realized he had no parachute. It had been torn away in the explosion. He checked his body. His arms moved. His legs responded. He was awake, fully aware of what was happening. There were two kinds of reactions airmen had in freefall: panic or peaceful acceptance. John chose neither. He simply let go, not of life, but of fear. He thought about his brother, about the promise he made to come home, about the faces of the 9 men who were gone. He whispered a quiet apology and braced for impact. Below John lay a dense German forest. Tall pines, their branches thick with winter snow, reached toward him like a net made by nature itself. First, the branches broke his fall, snapping one by one as his body crashed through them. Then, the soft blanket of snow absorbed the final impact. John lost consciousness on contact. When German patrols found him hours later, they expected a corpse. Instead, they found a man badly injured, both legs broken, back damaged, uniform torn, but very much alive. One medic reportedly said, "No man falls from the heavens and lives." And yet, here he is. For the second time that day, John survived the impossible. But John's story is only one piece of a larger truth. Across the world, in the vast Pacific Ocean, 3 American sailors were beginning their own impossible survival story. After their ship was destroyed, Harold Dixon, Tony Pastula, and Gene Aldrich found themselves adrift on a tiny life raft. Nothing but canvas and rope separating them from the endless sea. For 47 days they drifted. They had almost no water. They caught fish with their bare hands. They drank rainwater collected in helmets and soaked into shirts. The sun blistered their skin. Storms tossed them like toys. Sharks circled beneath the raft, drawn by the smell of blood and decay. And yet, every morning, as the sun rose, they told themselves, "We are not dying today." By day 20, one sailor broke down in tears, convinced they would never be found. On day 30, they began hallucinating, seeing islands that didn't exist, hearing voices carried by the wind. Their bodies shrank from dehydration. Muscles wasted away. They slept in shifts, afraid one of them might slip into the sea at night. But they never gave up. On the 47th day, a patrol aircraft spotted something strange. A small, barely visible speck floating in the waves. The pilot circled again, then again. He realized it was a raft. The 3 men were rescued, weighing barely half their normal weight. Doctors said survival was statistically impossible. But once again, the impossible had happened. Historians have studied cases like these for decades. How does a man survive a fall from the sky? How do sailors endure 47 days on an open ocean without supplies? The answers lie in 3 forces stronger than any weapon in the war. 1. Willpower. These men refused to surrender mentally. As long as they believed they might live, their bodies kept fighting. 2. Calm under fear. Most people panic before they die. These men controlled their fear, focusing on survival rather than despair. 3. Faith. Not necessarily in God, though some did pray, but faith that someone somewhere was coming for them. Faith in their comrades. Faith in their training. Faith that their story wasn't over yet. Survival is not just physical. It is intensely psychological. The mind, when pushed to its limit, can keep the body alive long after it should have failed. These were ordinary men thrown into extraordinary circumstances. Men who should have died. Men the war tried to erase. But they refused. John, the airman who fell from the sky. Harold, Tony, and Gene, who battled the Pacific for 47 days. And countless others whose stories remain buried in footnotes and forgotten records. They remind us of a simple truth. Death is not always the end. Sometimes survival is an act of defiance. Sometimes the human spirit bends the rules of the universe itself. In the darkest hours of World War II, when everything seemed lost, a few men proved that the human will to live is stronger than fire, stronger than oceans, and stronger than the very war that tried to claim them. Their stories echo across time, whispers of courage, miracles, and the impossible.